Hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya. Hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya. Hello and welcome back to Reclaim Within. Today's episode, we're going to be speaking about understanding the differences between activation, discomfort, and triggers. I believe that this episode is essential for anyone on the journey of consciousness, self-awareness, or transformation. We are diving into the differences between activation, discomfort, and triggers. Three words that often get thrown around in the growth spaces but are rarely slowed down enough to really understand or feel into. Understanding the difference between them has helped me move through my own healing with so much more compassion and clarity. It's also really helped me show up for other people in the healing world or facilitation world with a lot more compassion and clarity. Let's all take a really deep breath together and we'll begin. Let's start with activation. Activation really is the spark. It's when something touches a part of you that has been dormant or maybe even forgotten. It might come in the form of a conversation, a piece of art, a truth someone speaks that when it lands deep down in your bones. And suddenly, something inside of you has woken up. This could be a creative impulse, a vision, a desire to finally speak your truth or to start something new. Activations aren't always easy, but they actually don't have to be painful either. They just stir something like an internal alarm clock ringing, not to necessarily warn you always, although sometimes that is, but it also can be just to wake you, to say, hey, look here, there's life ready to move through you, there's life ready to form. So sometimes it actually can feel like an inspiration. Sometimes it can feel like being cracked open, but it always points towards becoming more of who you really are. So to be activated can come both with beauty and inspiration, but it also, on the polarity, being activated can come with discomfort and heat and almost like warning signs. So, for example, I could be dancing and all of a sudden I get really activated in that dancing and it can feel so good. And I can feel like myself be really inspired in the movements and the shifts and the push and the pull. Or at the same time, I could be dancing and someone could come up to me and try to dance with me. And all of a sudden I'm like activated because I feel like my personal space has been stepped in on. So either one is an activation. It's just, now what are we going to do with that energy? What are we going to do with that activation? Okay, so now let's talk about discomfort. Discomfort arises whenever you're stretching, whenever you're leaving the familiar, not necessarily because something's wrong, but because there's growth happening. So think about learning a new skill or speaking your needs for the first time or practicing speaking your needs. I do that with a lot of my clients. I have them practice speaking their needs or telling the truth even when your voice shakes. A lot of that comes with this nervous system that says, this is new, this is uncertain, this is uncomfortable. However, we have to learn that discomfort doesn't necessarily always mean to stop. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always. It actually just means that you're in motion. It's like emotional sore muscles, signs that something in you is expanding or rearranging or strengthening. I remember I went to an event where I didn't know anybody and I felt the discomfort of not knowing fully how to insert myself, and it came up as a, oh no, run away. And then I allowed myself to lean into it, sink into it, and I ended up introducing myself to people and having a really lovely time. However, many of us mistake discomfort for danger. So like in that example, at the very first, when I first felt into it, I was like, oh man, I don't know anybody here. I don't know what to do. And it came up in my system as danger. And then I allowed myself to take a couple deep breaths and be like, well, we're going to be here for a couple of days. So let's lean in, And it actually ended up being beautiful because I just let myself connect with the creator. And I said, let me just be of service and let me just find the conversations where I can lean in and do your work, And it actually ended up working beautifully. But the hard part about discomfort is that initially, it can feel like, oh, this is hard, or this might not be right, or I don't want to be uncomfortable. And that's why I really love the consciousness work or leaning into it from that perspective of consciousness work, because we have to consciously be aware. We have to become conscious of our orientation to discomfort as something that doesn't feel right. And the moment that we can actually be in relationship with that discomfort, we can then determine whether the discomfort is telling us to truly not engage in that activity or in that experience, or if it's just the edge of your comfort zone that you can push past. Because often discomfort is actually where the real transformation is happening. I tell so many of the people I work with all of the time that I get excited for them when they actually have met those edges. And people laugh at me because they're like, you are the only person who, when I'm having the hardest day or I'm having a really hard time with something, you are like, yes, this is amazing. And it's because I can tell that they found that growth edge. They found that discomfort of like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. And it's like, that's exactly when I come in with the encouragement of like, yes, get uncomfortable. This is a good thing. The contraction is sometimes necessary. So here's something that's important, I think, to see, and it's that activation often can lead to discomfort. So when something inside of you gets activated, whether that's a new truth or a new desire, or you're just in a new situation, or a lot of times activations can bring up old feelings from the past. I just had a client I was speaking to about this, and she's had a lot of activations around an old love in her life that she can't seem to get past. And so it's bringing up a lot of activations, but really when we sat with it and we felt into it, it's activating young childhood stuff that's coming up. It's uncomfortable to sit with the younger attachment wounding of her inner child. And yet that's where so much of the growth edge it lives. So this activation leading to discomfort, it's going to lead you straight into the discomfort and the stretch. And that is not a mistake. That is the path. Witnessing, I'm feeling activated. That makes me uncomfortable. Then my old patterns are going to try to come up and either talk me out of it or try to make me comfortable again or try to make someone else feel uncomfortable. That one is really common too. Can you float or can you surf in that space? Can you acknowledge that I'm activated and it's uncomfortable, and just practice leaning into that discomfort through that activation? It goes the other way around. So me with this podcast is a beautiful example of this. This has been such a difficult thing for me to start. I was really inspired to do this. I had a beautiful angel on earth help me kind of get this going unintentionally or intentionally. And in me leaning into sharing this way, it has been a very uncomfortable process. It has not been easy for me. I don't love being so externally focused. I have to lean into my discomfort because what I want to share feels really real and really authentic. But doing so with video and learning how to edit and audio, it's been so activating. And it's both inspiring and uncomfortable. And so now I feel like I'm starting to get a hang of it, and I'm starting to feel better about it. And now new things are coming up that are my growth edges and activating in it. And that's been a whole edge for me too. But that's the That's the path, is how do I dance with I'm activated in an inspiring way because I want to share these messages that I keep feeling like keep coming through, and I want more people to be able to be in community with me and be able to hear the things that I feel are so important and activating in me. But also I think that I'm not alone in this. I think we're all in this together. So I keep wanting to lean into my discomfort so I can push past that edge. And it's just this grind, but it's beautiful. Let's bring in that last bit. Let's actually now talk about triggers. So unlike discomfort, which is about leaning into the new, triggers actually bring us back to the past. And a trigger is when something in the present moment touches a wound that hasn't fully healed. And suddenly, out of nowhere, your whole body reacts as if the old story is actually happening again right now. You might be flooded with an emotion. You might have fear come up, rage come up, grief come up. Your heart might race, or you could just completely shut down. You might lash out, you might fawn, and it often feels much bigger than actually what's truly happening. Because it is. It is much bigger than what's actually happening. The reaction might not match the circumstance. And the reason is because you're not reacting just to the now moment. You're actually reacting to then. So the child who wasn't safe, or the teenager who wasn't seen, or the part of you that still doesn't feel worthy, those triggers show up where our pain lives. And it's not a sign of failure. They're actually signs of where the healing is being asked to happen. It's an invitation into a deeper connection and more reverence with yourself. I will also say that oftentimes when we are very triggered, there's not much in that very moment that we can do other than allow ourselves to come back to the three beautiful gifts that we have all been given in our human body that can restore us back to calm, which is breath, movement, and sound. If you find yourself in a triggered state, if you can remember breath, movement, and sound, choose one, choose all three, whatever works for you. But there's not going to be much else externally that can do that much for you if you're in that big of a trigger. For example, you might need to just put your running shoes on and go for a run, or put a song on and move your body and dance, or just take some really, really big breaths, right? In through the mouth, out through the mouth. Big inhales, exhales, bring the heart rate back down. Help your body realize that it's not actually unsafe in this moment, that it's moving through an emotional memory that's come back up. Or sound, as in big sighs, you can sing. Maybe you need to just cry it out. Maybe you'd need to scream into a pillow. Letting breath, movement, and sound move through your experience until you get to a calmer state. You might need to phone a friend or somebody who's not immediately involved in the situation that you're in, to help have a neutral resource outside of you, depending on how big the trigger is. This is where it's really great to work with professionals or people that are trained in how to help you work with those triggers when they come. Now, here's where everything I think gets really, really interesting because these three are not separate islands. They're actually a part of the same map from the way I see it. An activation can lead to discomfort, like realizing that you want more from life and suddenly you're on completely unfamiliar ground. Discomfort can also lead to triggers, like having to speak up for yourself in a relationship and suddenly feeling a rush of abandonment wounds come right up from childhood. If you stay present, if you hold yourself or let someone else who's in a neutral place hold you through the trigger, it can lead you to another activation, a deeper truth, a deeper layer of self-love, a new way of relating to yourself and others. This, I believe, is the spiral of healing, and it is a continual spiral. There is no getting somewhere. There's no somewhere to get to. It is just how good can you get at the dance, because it is not a straight line. It is a dance. And sometimes it's really painful and sometimes it's messy, but it's always so, so sacred. So let's go over that really quickly. Activations can lead to discomfort. Activations can also lead directly to triggers, but it's usually through discomfort. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. And discomfort can, not always, but can lead to triggers. And so what I'm breaking down here is something that can happen in microseconds, in the shortest amount of time. An activation can so quickly lead to discomfort and so quickly lead to a trigger. And so that's where, when you learn to dance with all of this, you can learn to understand yourself better and see where you're at within that dance. Where am I inspired, or where am I activated? Where does the discomfort come through? And how much can I dance with that discomfort before I tip over the edge into trigger? So the invitation here is actually to work on being able to move through all of this with compassion. How do we do that? Pause. Go slower. The more you can let yourself pause to what you're experiencing and just acknowledge yourself and name what you're feeling, the more you actually can open that dialogue, open that container of understanding with yourself. That's how we shift consciousness. That's how we give ourselves more awareness. That's how we move from maybe dismissing ourselves or dismissing someone else to having a more compassionate, open, and a way of relating to someone from a place of understanding. So you pause, you name what you're feeling, and just ask questions. Ask questions like, is this an activation? Am I stretching into new territory? Am I just feeling discomfort? Or am I touching something old or something that's still tender? And the key here is, how can you orient to curiosity rather than judgment? The more you can stay curious, the more that you'll be able to open up into this exploration. We stop seeing these experiences as that we're broken. I think that's another really big one that I just want to pull in there. All of this is just human. Every single one of us has our own experience with activations, discomfort, and triggers. These are just signs that you're alive. These are signs that you're a human and that you're alive. And it's also an invitation from your inner world to be able to reclaim within, to be able to tend to those tender places of your inner world that are just asking for more love, presence, and honestly, permission to evolve. So today I invite you to reflect on maybe what has been activated in you lately. Where has discomfort come in, and where are you navigating that? Where are you shying away from discomfort? Where are you leaning into discomfort? And what triggers have been coming up that are actually calling you home to parts of yourself that still long for wholeness? We don't have to fear these experiences. When we actually bring this conscious awareness to them, we can meet them with more gentleness and grace. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for listening, for walking this path of inner work with me, with sharing your heart and stepping into your own inner world to reclaim your own inner experience. It takes so much courage. If this episode has supported you, I would really be so very grateful if you would share it or leave a review or just become a subscriber, so that this message can ripple out even further. Thank you so much. And until next time, be kind with your discomfort, patient with your triggers, and grateful for every activation that's reminding you who you are and initiating you into more life.